welcome to another lesson on databases. You will recall that we mentioned that computers make it much easier to work with large databases. Until now, you may have thought that the opposite is true, since we had to design the table, add many field properties, and design forms and input all the records one by one. Today we will be focusing on the selection of some of the records or fields in an existing table. It's a time-consuming and daunting task to go through many records manually to select records meeting certain conditions. This is where a database program is very useful and powerful. By the end of the lesson, you will be able to apply filters in datasheet view in a table, create a selection query using the wizard, and modify it in design view. What do you think of when I say that you apply a filter? Well, a filter in Access works a lot like a sieve or filter paper, where the size of the holes determine what will go through and what will remain in the sieve. In databases, you can set what fields and records you want filtered, and only the information you want will then be displayed. Filters can be applied to tables in datasheet view as well as in form view. There are two ways to filter data in a database. You can either use filter by selection or filter for input. Using the filter by selection way will help you retrieve only records that contain whatever field value you select. First, select the value in a particular field you want to filter for in the datasheet. For example, select 2000 in the release year field. Then click on the Filter by Selection icon on the datasheet toolbar or in the pop-up menu when you right-click in the selected field. Only the records matching the selected value are shown now. Using the metaphor of the sieve, you have filtered out the books that were not released in 2000, and the water in the jug is cleaner now. If you select a second field, say CD in the Format column, only the records in the current filtered selection are considered when the filter is applied. The result if you apply two filters consecutively is therefore only books meeting with both criteria, released in 2000 and in CD format. If you want a new filter, first click the Remove Filter icon in the toolbar or in the pop-up menu when you right-click in the selected field, and then select a new field to filter by. Another technique for filtering records is filter for input, that uses a value or expression you enter to find only records that contain the value or satisfy the expression. Expressions can perform calculations, manipulate characters, or test data. Expressions in Access use the field name on the left-hand side, and the criteria you enter form the right-hand side of the equation. Criteria usually include logical operators like equal to, greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. Example, greater than or equal to 100 typed in the purchase price field will filter only books costing 100 Rand or more. You type the expression in the box next to Filter For in the pop-up menu when you right-click in the selected field. For example, right-click anywhere in the quantity field in datasheet view and type greater than 1 in the box next to Filter For. This means you are filtering books where you have more than one copy. The same applies in Form View. Let's click in the Format field in Form View and type equal to CD in the box next to Filter For. Only records in CD format are listed now. To filter for records that meet multiple criteria, you can use Boolean operators not, and or to join criteria. For example, if you type greater than 1 and less than 3 in the quantity field, the database will only list all the records with 2 copies, since 2 is greater than 1 and at the same time is less than 3, and therefore satisfy both conditions. Greater than 1 and less than 10 typed in the quantity field will filter only the books where you have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9 copies. To search for records that meet at least one of the criteria, use the OR operator to join criteria. For example, CD or DVD in the format field will filter all CDs and DVDs. If you type 1 or 3 in the quantity field, you will get a list of all the records with 1 or 3 copies. Avoid the common mistake of using AND, since it is impossible for the quantity to be equal to 1 and 3 at the same time. Not hardcover in the format field will show all softcover books, CDs and DVDs, everything except hardcover books. Another way to select certain records is to use a database object called a query. A query, to put it simply, is a question about the data stored in your tables that involves criteria just like filters. Sometimes you have to decide whether you will need to use a filter and query. Let's discuss some of the differences between the two so that you can make an informed decision. In a query, you can select the fields you want to display, but in a filter, you always see all the fields in the selected records. Queries can be saved to reuse as an object in the database, whereas filters are tools to temporarily view or edit a subset of records while you're in a form or data sheet. You can also perform calculations on the values of fields in a query. The simple Select Query wizard creates queries where you can select which fields from a table you want to view. You can't limit the records it retrieves by setting criteria in the wizard though. This has to be done in Query Design View after selecting the fields. To create a Select Query, click Queries under Objects in the Database window and then double-click Create Query by using Wizard. Select the fields and name the query, and then choose Open the query to view information to view the selected fields in Query Datasheet View, or choose Modify the query design to go to Query Design View to add fields, criteria, and a sort order. In Query Datasheet View, you can view the fields you have selected. It looks just like Datasheet View in the table, except that you will only see the selected fields. To toggle between Design View and Datasheet View, click on the View button on the standard toolbar in the top left-hand corner of the screen. In Query Design View, you can view the fields you have selected in the design grid. If you decide to add more fields, click in the next available column in the grid in the field row and select the field you want from the drop-down list. To add criteria to select certain records, click in the appropriate field column in the grid in the criteria row and type the expression. The criteria will be similar to the expressions used in filters. For example, type No in the criteria row of the Available to Borrow field to see only research books that cannot be taken out. Save this query as Research Books. You can use AND to join criteria for the same field if both conditions must be met in exactly the same way as filters. For example, if you type greater than 1 and less than 3 in the quantity field, the query will only list all the records with 2 copies. You can also use the between operator to query for a range of values. However, it includes the boundary values as well. The condition between 1 and 3 in the quantity field will list all the records with 1, 2, or 3 copies. Type the different criteria for the different fields in the respective columns of the fields, but in the same criteria row if all those conditions must be met for the record to be included in the query. You can also use the OR operator to join criteria for the same field if at least one of the criteria must be met. For example, if you type 1 or 3 in the quantity field, you will see all the records with 1 or 3 copies. This condition can also be entered by typing 1 in the first criteria row and 3 in the row below it. If you want to combine conditions in 2 different fields where at least one of them must be met, type them in different rows if at least one of the conditions must be met for the record to be included in the query. Here are a few more examples of criteria. Not 2 for the quantity field will exclude only records with a value 2 in this field. Like S in any text field, for example, title will list all fields starting with the letter S followed by any number of characters. Like ing in any text field, for example, title will list all fields ending with a substring ing preceded by any number of characters. Like Potter in any text field, for example, title will list all fields of any length containing the word Potter anywhere in the string. Is null indicates missing or unknown data. Is not null indicates that the field contains data and is not empty. You can sort the query's results by specifying a sort order in the design grid. If you specify a sort order for more than one field, Microsoft Access sorts the leftmost field first, so you should arrange the fields you want to sort from left to right in the design grid. Lastly, you can perform calculations on values in fields in a query. A calculated field is used to display the result of an expression using one or more of the other fields in the query. The result is recalculated each time there's a change in any of the values that the expression is based on. To add a calculated field, open a query in Design View and click in the first empty column in the field row. First type a name for the new field, followed by a colon, and then type the expression, putting field names in square brackets and using a combination of mathematical operators such as the plus for addition, the minus for subtraction, the asterisk for multiplication, or the / for division. For example, value, purchase price multiplied by quantity. To prevent error messages, always check that the spelling of the field names is exactly the same as in the table. A new field name and colon precedes the expression. That there are brackets around references to field names. Your task in preparation for the next lesson is to investigate how to use predefined functions to compute sum, average, count, minimum, maximum. Use the help function in your database program. In our next lesson, we're going to create reports where records from tables or queries are neatly formatted with headings. Thank you for joining us in this lesson on databases. Be sure to check out our website for interactive lessons. Goodbye.